Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of FSI DFS Major League Baseball coverage. We had a great weekend. Mega Ruler 31. I'll be covering the 13-game slate for Monday, June 14th. 3 games early on have weather concerns. About 50% chance of rain in Nationals in Pittsburgh, Boston, and Toronto. And then I think the heaviest chance of rain is probably in New York City for the Mets against the Cubs. The rest of the games look pretty good. Pitching's not too great today. And we've Coors Field, so we're going to have to find some decent ones if we want to try to fit some of those expensive bats in. So let's start breaking it all down. Top pitchers on the slate, I think, face each other in the same game. It's going to be Tyler Glasnow against Lance Lynn, Tampa Bay and Chicago White Sox. I think Glasnow is going to be a top pitcher on the slate. I know the White Sox are a good hitting team. They're better against lefties. They struggle at times. They can strike out. And then I think Lance Lynn would be the second one against this Rays offense that definitely does strike out. I know the lefties have some power there, and Meadows and Lau and maybe even Wendell, but I think that we really have a good opportunity for them to have a good game. And I think, it's going to be expensive to do too, so I don't know if you're going to be able to get Coors in, but we'll talk about that in the breakdown. Third one, I think, is really, can't believe we're saying this, but dropping down to Adam Wainwright. He's had some decent games this year, more decent games than he has in the recent past. But he gets to Miami Marlins, so they do have some potential here and there. But I know Jazz and Dickerson are good lefties against him. But I think overall, like, he's solid enough if you need to pay down a little bit or make him your SP1 if you can't afford the other guys to get Coors in. Final guy in the top tier, and this is GPP only. This is definitely a contrarian play, more like probably a late night play. Is Sean Manaea. He gets the Angels, which out Trout and Tani and Upton and Rendon can have their times against left-handed pitching, but the overall lineup really doesn't scare me. It's a 3.8 total. He's super expensive at 10-1 though, so he's the second highest pitcher on the slate, right behind Glasnow. So I don't think many people will be playing him. So if you want to play him for ownership in some kind of GPP, especially later on, if you're playing like a later slate, I think he makes sense there. Medium range, I think my favorite pitcher would be Alex Wood from San Francisco. He has struggled a little bit recently. He gets Arizona, who can hit at times, but it's not in the Arizona park. It's in the San Francisco park. So at 8.5, I think he's reasonable there. Manoah, it's risky with the rain and it up against the Boston Red Sox. You start off in a couple good games, and then I think people maybe just watch some tape or something on to figure out some pitches he's going to throw, so he hasn't been as effective. Boston's been hitting well recently, so Manoah's pitched 3 games. The first one was 29 against the Yankees, and then he had 4.7 against the Marlins, and then he was 13.5 against the Chicago White Sox, which is a tough matchup. So again, don't love any of these options, but he's one there. But the weather could also, we have to watch that, because if he goes out there and only gets like 3 innings and then they pull him and resume the game like an hour later and put in another pitcher, that doesn't help anything. Peterson would be the other guy that I probably consider in the mid-range. Like I said, there's just really not many people, and Peterson's really risky because of the rain, but he's up against a Cubs team that does have strikeouts. Baez hasn't been in the lineup, so they do have some strong righties here, but again, we're going to have to make some choices if we're going to try to get Coors in. Low end, there's a couple possibilities here, even though we like Milwaukee usually as a cheap stack, and they have a 4.9 total. Gutierrez is a young pitcher who hasn't been that bad. He comes in at 6'9". So, and there are some strikeouts in the Milwaukee lineup. So he's only, looking at his game log here, he's had a 23, a 13, and a 12. Actually did face Milwaukee recently, and he did have a 23. He went 7 innings in that one. So, hey, maybe we found what we're looking for here. Keller against Boyd. So Keller gets the Detroit bump. I think, that's definitely a great matchup. Keller has his struggles also, but Detroit really doesn't have anybody that's really going to scare you too much. So you're probably looking for like maybe 15 to 17 DK points there, but that might be enough tonight. Uh, Gonzalez against the Minnesota Twins is also risky, but he comes in at 6K. The Twins are good against righties, but he's been consistently in the teens too. He put up 23 against the Dodgers. He put up 12 against Houston, 17 against Oakland. He's played Minnesota before and had .05, so that one didn't go very well for him. Let's see how many runs he gave up in that one. 7 runs, but and again, that was earlier on in the season, back in April, so a lot has changed since then. So again, these guys are all risky. And probably the riskiest play on the slate, but in somebody that I definitely will have in GPPs, it might be a YOLO play, but Gomber, I've liked him all season and even pitching in Coors. And now, I guess this is probably the best hitting weather that they've had temperature wise for Coors. It looks like it's going to be 92 degrees. Wind is blowing out a little bit. So, definitely risk here, but he has pitched well at Coors. Like Texas was in there. He put up 27 points against them. He's faced San Diego before at San Diego. He had 21 DK points against them at San Diego at Coors before. He had 21 DK points against them. He's put up really good scores against Houston and the Dodgers at home. So this guy is a very good pitcher. So that's at 7K there. Even if I don't know if I do him against San Diego, but I think he's somebody that you can look at. So looking at stacks, obviously San Diego in Coors is going to be one of the best stacks of the night. Grissom might be back in the lineup. Primarily want the righties, but I don't struggle taking Grissom at 4K there because if Gomber does fail and they get the bullpen, then it might be a lefty-righty matchup with a bullpen guy. Cleveland would be my next favorite stack. They get the Baltimore Orioles and Dean Kramer. Definitely like the top of this lineup. Bobby Bradley's been called up. He's been hitting the ball hard. He's only 3.7K. Takes up a first base spot, but I'm willing maybe to do that. And some lineups I'm looking at tonight. But J-Rom is a great play at 5.7. The rest of these guys are like sub 4K, except for Hernandez, who, you switch hitter, top of the stack at 4.5 isn't bad. Not much power, but he does have contact and speed and gets on, and usually the other guys can hit him in, so that's good. San Francisco Giants are continuing to get healthy. They get Matt Peacock, who's not a great pitcher. It'd probably be better if this game was in Arizona, but I think the lefties here, Yaz is back. Talkman might hit out at the top of the lineup. Crawford, Belt is back. So there's definitely probably throw a lot of left-handed bats at him. So really like that stack. Reasonably priced. They're in about the 4K range. Nobody in like 5 or 6K range. And like you said, if you want throw Talkman, if he's leading off there at 2.9, that's not bad. Blue Jays, if the weather holds up, would be my fourth and final top stack that I'd like. Put up 18 runs yesterday. They're just hitting the ball well. Doesn't matter righty, lefty. With all these a righty, pretty much normal splits, but he can give up hard contact. Really, I don't think he's got a huge strikeout rate either. So, but this Toronto team is just so locked in. I think they're almost becoming matchup proof at batters. So, something to consider. GPP stack, love Colorado. For some reason, the Rockies are priced as if they weren't in Coors Field, which is weird because I think they played the Mets last week or something. And like some of the guys are like 5 and 6K, look like they were priced in Coors Field. So I just don't understand the algorithm sometimes here. But your highest guy, I think, is Story and Blackman. They're 4.6 and 4.5, definitely reasonable. But Tapia leading off. Not sure who's going to pitch for San Diego. Lamet's listed, but he might be bumped till tomorrow. So keep an eye on that. But I don't think it really matters because I don't think it's going to be you, Darvish, or somebody like really strong like that. So you really definitely can target the Colorado bats here. Cincinnati makes another good stack against Lauer. They've been hitting really well here. Winker's really high up there at 6K, but Castellanos is only 4.8. Stevens, India, there's the righty leading off at 4.3. They're a little bit more expensive for a stack, but definitely good. Going back to Boston too against this young rookie Manoah, like the lefties here. Finally, we've been on the righties a lot, but here I take like Verdugo and Devers, maybe throw in JD or Xander if you want to make the stack. And if there's another lefty hitting up, I don't think Kiki will lead off here. You might see Santana, if he's healthy, up on top the switch header there, and he's usually relatively cheap. So that makes a nice little 5-man stack. I'm okay putting JD and Bogart in there as righty on the righty matchup here, but then just make sure you get the lefties in for the rest of it. Mets lefty stack, if the weather holds up here. Arrieta was a great pitcher, but he's just been poor recently. So switch hitter Villard, Lindor up there, Dominic Smith. I think I would maybe take like a 3-man stack there. I don't think I'd take a full stack, but maybe throw Alonso in there. Cheap ones, Baltimore against Cleveland. JC Maya isn't a great pitcher. He's still trying to find his way. So take some of these Baltimore bats against him, who's usually a cheap stack. St. Louis, I like the Cardinals against Braxton Garrett, who's a lefty, who's 5K, who probably will go a couple innings, then you get to the bullpen, but righty heavy team here, not super expensive. Arenado's 5.5, but Goldsmith's down to 4K. Carlson, switch hitter 3.1. Edmund 4.2. So top of this lineup's definitely reasonable if you want to stack them. Go back to Milwaukee, even though I like Gutierrez as the pitcher. I think you can still go the lefties here if you're looking for a cheap stack or for some one-offs. And then Arizona would probably be, even though if you think Wood's still going to struggle, some of these Arizona righties could be a good stack here. Off the board too is the Pittsburgh Lefties against the Washington Nationals. Just quickly going by game. Pittsburgh and Nationals, neither pitcher. Brubaker maybe against the Washington, but with the rain and everything, good. Pretty much scratch this game. I might take some Pittsburgh one-off righties against John Lester if I need to fill in some cheap spots. We talked about Baltimore and we talked about Toronto and Boston. Like the bats on both sides. Toronto more, Red Sox lefties, Manoah potential as a pitcher. Rain scare in the Cubs and the Mets. Really not looking at bats in this game. Peterson maybe as a cheap pitcher. Maybe the Mets lefties as a stack, but probably won't end up there with the weather. Probably get canceled. Do not like either pitcher in Baltimore and Cleveland. Like the bats on both sides, especially the Cleveland side. Tampa Bay and White Sox like the both pitchers. Top two on slate, Glasnow and Lynn. Wouldn't take any bats there. Cincinnati and Milwaukee, like the bats on both sides. Cincinnati more as a secondary stack. Milwaukee more as a value stack. Gutierrez is potential as a pitcher. He put up about 20 DK points against Milwaukee recently. Detroit and Kansas City, Keller and Boyd, they're both cheap pitchers that you can play. I like Keller much better. Not too interested in anybody really from the Detroit batting side. From Kansas City, maybe some of the righties are cheap. Even Soler, he's got to break out at some point. Maybe today's the day. St. Louis at Miami. Only like the St. Louis side here. Wainwright could potentially be an SP1 just in the slate with all the rest of the pitching options of being so thin. And then St. Louis righty bats you could probably load up against. Coors, Gomber is an intriguing pitcher if you're not stacking San Diego. He might be able to get through 5 and get you enough points that you need, and then San Diego pounds him afterwards. So if you want to be super contrarian, then play Gomber as your SP2 with Glasnow and stack the San Diego Padres still, and just hope that Gomber gets enough early on before the Padres bats really start to light up. Like both sides in here, San Diego's very expensive, so you're going to have to figure out how to get them in. And then Colorado is really, really cheap, surprisingly, so they work also. Angels and Athletics, Manea is a very expensive pitcher, but he could be a very contrarian SP1 if you want to go with that. Not too great on the Angels bats. A's bats maybe against Bundy, he's given up some hard contact, struggled a little bit, so there would be probably more of a late night stack. Like the Giants against Matt Peacock, hitting wise, starting to get healthy. Take the lefties there. Maybe a contrarian GPP if you want some righties or some one-offs against Alex Wood. But I think Alex Wood is probably the solidest mid-range pitcher there, even though he struggled a little bit recently. I think he's going to have a good game tonight. Maeda is coming back from the DL for Minnesota, so I think he's only his second start or so. So really still not going to target Seattle against him. Marco Gonzalez, I think, has put up some decent games recently, struggled against Minnesota early in the season, but I think with how banged up they are, that he might be a SP2 option at 6K, probably the best low tiered one. Well, maybe, no, he'd probably be third. I'd go Gutierrez, Keller, and then Gonzalez there. And then the final game, the Dodgers and the Phillies. You could go with the Dodgers bats, but they're banged up again. Muncy is out. Bellinger, I don't know if he's going to play. So I wouldn't play Spencer Howard as pitcher, but I'd be kind of more hesitant in playing the Dodgers stack. Even though they have a 5 total, I think if I'm betting, I'd bet the under on that one. And Philly, I'm not really interested in this match, even though Gonzalez is can't really throw strikes and stuff. I think there's so many other better options out there. They're not going to pay 9.1 for him in this one. So looking at some builds quick. If you want to go with the pitching and fade cores and go Glass now and Lynn, I'd still take Caratini as your catcher at 3K. There are two that potentially could be lower with Severino at 2.2 and Hedges, I think, at like 2.5. But that gives you 3.77 left. If you wanted to play some Coors bats, and you definitely could. You just have to punt a lot too. I'd probably go with a Cleveland stack here. I'd take Bradley, Cesar Hernandez, Ramirez, Naylor, and Rosario, and that leaves you about 3K for a shortstop and your other outfield spot. And again, I'd look at the cheap bats of Milwaukee, Pittsburgh, Arizona, Baltimore, to fill in that lineup. And then finally, if you are going Coors, what I would do is I'd put Glasnow or Lynn, whoever you want to take as your SP1 in first. Then I would build the bats you want. So Machado, Tatis, Myers, and Pham are probably the ones you're looking at. I'm okay putting Grisham in if he's back in the lineup. He's only 4K. I know he doesn't have the split advantage, but later in the game that could come into play because he could get righties out of the bullpen. So that leaves you first and second open. There is a 2K guy that would work at first base. So then you just have to figure out who you want for second base. And then I would go back and I would put your SP2 in last, just see what range you end up in and who you can afford with your bat wise. If you can make it to like a Manoah or Peterson, or if you got to go with Gutierrez, Keller, or Gonzalez, or somebody else. So that's the builds for today. Again, keep your eye on the weather for the first couple of games. So thanks for watching. Please give us a like. Recommend our channel to our friends. Subscribe so you know when our videos are going to come out. And look back to seeing you tomorrow to give you some more insight. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me on Twitter at MegaRuler31 or leave some comments in the chat and we'll try to get back to you. Thank you for watching.